Well, I think it's going to be a very important video, and I know a lot of people have heard the doom and gloom stuff about, the end is near for the last 8 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever, and that's a constant theme of a lot of many people. Now, I do realize the reality of the situation is it is grave, even though things kind of look nice on the outside, and things are functioning. I mean, nothing's really drastically wrong in our society where people can buy food in the stores and buy gas for their cars, and their homes are fine. Now, this pictures of a couple cats that are hiding in a little pouch, a furry pouch. It's almost as if I compare this. I thought this is funny because it compares me to. I make a comparison between these cats and silver holders. Silver holders are kind of like hiding. In a way, they are. They're kind of like, oh, we got silver because we got physical silver because there's a major problem coming up in our economy. And yes, that's true. But we ought to also look on the bright side and relax because there's light at the end of the tunnel, and kind of just stretch out and be happy. So, just to kind of set the tone for this video. But I got to tell you, there's something seriously really coming up in here, I think, in this country in the next couple months or maybe within days, actually, because, well, we've seen the situation what happened with Jeb Bush. They put $100 million on this guy, and they bet on the wrong horse. Then, of course, Hillary Clinton, she wins the opposite side on the Democratic ticket. And, the bitch was of the people. Oh, we don't want another Clinton. We don't want another Bush. We're sick of these people, right? Now, I'm getting on to some of this politics because the thing is, the candidates for the president have always been controlled by the elite. The problem is, Trump has not been controlled by the elite. And the elite are, always looking for war to basically cancel out the debts. It's all going along with this collapse theory that we have with the silver holders. And, war going all the way back to World War I, like we see the World War I honeys over here. This is actually in the 20s, wearing the World War I helmets. It's not only been business, but it's been a way to extinguish debt. Debt of nations, to kind of just bring the record right down to square one again. That's really the purpose of war. And to keep people's minds off the collapsing economy. Oh, we got an enemy. And actually, what spurs people on more than anything? War. In the absence of war, the think tank like the Committee of 300 and the Club of Rome, in the absence of war, what was the thing that people could sacrifice a lot for? They theorized the environment. That's one of the modus operandis behind Earth this, Earth that, and all this garbage, and also the way to control people, right? Kind of like giving you a sideline overview of things. But here's the situation where I think things might come up to a collapse soon or some kind of major conflict. First off, Hillary Clinton is the elite's candidate. Obviously, the Republican establishments, even the supposed people that funded the Tea Party, the Koch brothers, they're openly coming out for Hillary Clinton. I'm like, wow. And here Trump is like taking crap from every side there is because he's not in with them, right? Now that's telling me the establishment's losing control, so they're going to have to try something drastic. Either it's going to be a war, and Putin's not biting. And I think there was an attempt on his life here recently with that car crash thing that Mercedes just veered abruptly to the left into the oncoming Putin's BMW or whatever it was. Something's fishy whereby I think that you might see some kind of real problem coming up here very soon. There's two sides to this coin. Now, first off, they're not going to be able to kickstart the economy just through the Fed doing any more types of measures. This is like the bike. Old girl's on the bike. She's trying to kickstart it. You might think of her as Janet Yellen's granddaughter. You're not going to be able to freaking kickstart the economy just lowering interest rates because they're virtually at zero already. You're not going to be able to kickstart the economy just by flooding the economy with more dollars. Maybe you could if you gave it to the middle class, but they always give it to the big banks and the too bigs to fail. So the problem is we're at the end of the ride. As old girl here is wearing a hat ride. We're at the end of the ride. Now, they do know this. Now, on the flip side, though, they want Hillary to win and that's a reason that they will not pull the rug out from underneath the economy, because if they do that, the incumbent party usually loses. Like, if you look at the statistics for the last 88 years on presidential elections, the direction of the economy was a major predictor of whether the incumbent party stayed in or the challenging party took over. Now, the problem with Hillary, though, is this. Now, I'm bringing on this political stuff because this analysis actually goes along with everything there is with the economy and silver. The problem with Hillary is this. She's so damn sick, I don't even know if she's going to make it to the freaking election, for crying out loud. She's having a problem getting out of her car. She's got, bags she wears on her legs so she can pee. She's taking shots from this guy, with this combo pen whenever she spaces out. So maybe she's just done, and they realize it. I mean, everybody's seeing it, and even the major media right now is admitting that Trump is ahead. And I think Trump is ahead by a freaking major amount that they can't skew with cheating. So what are they going to do? Maybe they're just going to pull the plug on everything, maybe even before the election. Possibly, I don't know. It's a possibility. Now, back in September 28th, 2008, now I do know this from a boutique investment house that, I didn't work for them directly, but they were attached to the CPA firm that I work for. And I knew from the guy that was the head of that in Florida, and also read about it later on from words from Hank Paulson and Timmy Geithner, that in September 28, 2008, we narrowly avoided a total meltdown in the banking system because the big guys were pulling out cash in the money markets, and there wasn't enough cash to pull out. And what happened at that time was the Fed was trying to infuse cash in the system, but they were not be able to put enough money into the system as fast as it was being pulled out. It was actually going to cause a temporary banking shutdown. Almost happened, narrowly averted by hours. This time, the creditary expansion is 3 or 4 times as high. See, this is the real reason you got silver. Silver is not going to be like a real liquid asset in times of an emergency, but it's kind of like the backstop. It's the last resort of your financial haven. Like, maybe if you have whiskey and wine and food and bullets, you're probably far better off than with that type of stuff in a survival situation for making quick trades. But for retention of wealth over the long haul, if you got more wealth than then you can buy bullets and beans and bacon and food and things like that. Well, in that case, that's where you buy their silver. Silver's actually going to go up exponentially, and I'm going to tell you, I think one of the things that's going to lead silver up is there's going to be a major conflict in the Middle East. I think that's another thing that they're playing, and it's in the cards. And obviously Hillary would pull that card immediately if she ever got in. But I don't think she's going to even survive in like one piece between now and September 8th. I don't think she's going to make it. So that's telling me that, there could be if they already lost their bets on Bush, the elite, they would have took him. They're losing their bets on Hillary. Hillary's getting clobbered, and they just might just pull the rug out from underneath everything. Now, in the case of the United States, everything is based upon credit. Now, it's not just the government debt, which is astronomically high. It's like, I think it's $19.3.4 trillion, approaching $20 trillion. And I know everybody's cheering on USA is great, but USA is flat out broke. It's also consumer debt. Another problem is the debt even with the student loans, which shows you that people that are the up-and-coming intelligentsia class, or if you want to call them, I don't know, they would be the future ruling class. They can't even find jobs with their degrees, and on top of it, they're burdened and laden down with immense amounts of student debt. that they're going to have to pay off with interest for many years ahead of time, which is actually another dampener on society, American society, in the long run. It's horrendous. Now, but in the short run, it also means that all these people that are laden down with student debt, since they can't even find jobs in the economy, they also are spenders, new spenders. These are the people that, like, in other words, they just got out of college. They're the ones that would spend their money more. They would be out there blowing their money on all kinds of stuff with discretionary spending. And that's another force in the economy that is not there anymore because they're laden down with so much student debt. That's the best and brightest of the new upcoming generation. So we're screwed from all kinds of angles. Now, the other angle is this. From the Federal Reserve, they're playing a juggling act with what's on their balance sheet. In other words, when they had troubled assets that were in a bank, the Federal Reserve, in other words, say you bought land at, $50,000 in 2005, and the bank is holding the mortgage on that land or whatever. Say they're holding a mortgage on that land, and they go to take that asset in because the mortgagee can't pay it. Well, the land is no longer worth $50,000. Is that what I said? $50,000. It's worth, I don't know, $5,000. So you got something on the balance sheet that actually needs to be readjusted down to $5,000. So that's how these banks were going under back then, right? So what the Fed did was buy up all these troubled assets at face value. In other words, it's like you going in the stock market, and every time you make a bad bet, the Fed gives you back your initial investment, and you can never go broke. That's kind of like what they did with the real estate and all the other assets that were held on the bank's balance sheets. The problem is that's all on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. How the hell are they going to unload this stuff? They got a lot of junk on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet itself. How are they going to unload this? It's impossible. So it's like this dog. He's riding an Indian motorcycle. How long is he going to be able to do this? Not that very long. It's like you could pilot the ship so long under those type of conditions, and that's the problem with the Fed. What happens next if we have a bigger collapse, in which there is going to be throughout? There's going to be a systemic collapse, and we're actually near the 7-8 year cycle, which is typical of the major recessions. We had one in 1987, the stock market crash. I think it was Black October 1987. 1993, that was another time when the World Trade Center got bombed. There's a problem with the markets, and then also the Japanese market started turning around. And in 1999, 2007, 8 years later, we had the tech boom crash, and then 8 years later, we had the housing market crash 7-8 years later. So here we are 7-8 years later from, actually the lowest point of the stock market was in not 2008. That was actually when they're coming out with all this TARP and all these advisories from President Bush at that time, and how you should show these things on the balance sheet with companies that were in construction. But actually, the lowest point came about in March 9th. I think it was in March of 2009 for the actual equities. The equities crashed later on. Now, the other thing that's going on is, we have a lot of New World Order propaganda coming out here. Actually, the Pope is another yo-yo. God. It's another reason not to be too religious as a sideline, I kiss you, Islamic feet. Oh. I had to put this in here. Guy is... I'm a Catholic, but I'm like, forget it, dude. Anyway, so the situation, though, is this. Since Hillary Clinton is, they're betting on their last horse, and Hillary Clinton is so ill, she's ugly, which is not helping her out. I mean, she's gotten uglier because of her health, too, right? She looked a lot better 10 years ago. That actually influences votes, believe it or not. I know you might say Trump doesn't look so great, but he's got a great-looking wives and daughters, so so that helps him out too. Now the thing is, that's a factor in the election, believe it or not. Whether you even look at any kind of politics or all, just what a person looks like. Now, she is such in ill health, and it's pretty much everybody pretty much knows it now. that they're betting on the wrong horse. Now, she's also got other problems, though. And the other problems are that it's coming out that we saw the leaks from, I know they call it the Russian hacker, but it wasn't really the Russian hacker. It was anonymous. It was WikiLeaks and Julian Assange and the NSA that the election was stolen from, the primary election was stolen from Bernie Sanders. And a lot of these results are going to be invalidated in other states. So she's coming into this race whereby not only she looks like the crook with the email server and doing favors for foreign powers for money to go into the Clinton Foundation, but she's also looking like the crook that she stole the election from Bernie Sanders. So I'm like, whoa. And plus she can't even get out of the damn car. She's having problems standing up, going upstairs. I mean, she's got this bag on her leg where she's got to watch out where she's peeing. She's sunk. So they might, my premise was before that they weren't going to do anything with the economy between now and the election because they want Hillary to win. And the best shot of having her win is that they will they keep everything as rosy as possible, and because that's good for the incumbent party. But it's almost coming to critical mass now with Hillary, and if it looks like one more 4 or 5 minute coughing fit, one more tripping, and one more where everybody's catching it on the news, and more states that get their primary elections invalidated and go into Bernie Sanders. I mean, the elite might just say, well, we lost our bet on Hillary Clinton too. And then what are they going to do in between now and the election? Maybe they'll just pull the plug early. To hell with it. They might. The problem is with our economy, and this is what happened this is almost where the banks defaulted or stopped working in September 28th, 2008, is that most of our money exists in the form of credit. And being so, that means that any kind of issue whereby people need to take out the actual cash, the cash doesn't exist, or the dollars don't actually exist. Let me put it that way. The electronic dollars don't even actually exist because it's all in the form of credit. If there's a credit crunch, the economy will shut down. And that almost happened in 2008 when people were trying to withdraw cash, not physical dollars like paper dollars, but just withdraw cash out of money markets. That was really where the crisis occurred. If it happens this time, the creditary expansion is 3 or 4 times higher than it ever was even from 2008. Now, the girl on the left of this picture is, I think, from the 40s. She's called the Milwaukee Girl or Milwaukee Babe. That's what's written on her bathing suit here. So just to give you a little information on that. I like using some of these old time things because I like people getting a little more nostalgic with America because it keeps their mind off of where we're going. And you remember even back in the 40s, things were pretty tough. We had rations going on during I don't remember, but in the 40s we had rationing going on with gasoline and meats and other essential items, brass especially, during World War II. And prior to that, we had the Great Depression, which lasted more than a dozen years. People were living in shanty towns and all this type of stuff, but we all survived. Now, situation today is that we got so many people today that are not aware of how to survive in the real world. Now, I put some other things out here and there and little tidbits that might help you out. I don't know everything myself, but I know a couple things here and there. So it's like I try to keep a balance on this channel, like without putting fear, but actually like giving you a rational caution of what could possibly be coming up. Now, the problem is, though, that we have to have a positive attitude. The problem is negativity in the I don't know. I don't really want to say I have a conspiracy channel. I mean, I delve into a lot of that stuff, and I don't really call it conspiracy. I call it reality. But we have to have a positive attitude because a positive attitude is the only thing that actually makes you win. If you have a negative attitude and you think everything's down in the dumps and you're constantly hitting the fear button because you're watching too much InfoWars, you're going to wind up losing. But again, I want to just summarize again kind of what I said, that we are actually approaching a severe credit crunch again, just like September 28, 2008. Will that happen? I don't know. It was narrowly voted last time. This time, the credit expansionary credit since over the last year is there's 3 or 4 times as much credit out there as there was 8 years ago. Could that mean there's a systemic, freezing up of all the banks? Yes. But does that mean all the banks will be systemically frozen forever? No, it might be a week or two. It might be here and there, maybe too. But then the Federal Reserve is not going to be able to do the same kind of actions like they did before. Now, I want to actually give you another sideline on something too, with debt and what's going on with the United States, because you realize that we owe a lot of money to foreign sources. Now, I know most of the debt we actually supposedly owe to ourselves. It's these big institutions. But you know what? A lot of that money, actually that debt, is where people's retirement money is and pensions, and it's holding up the whole financial system in the United States. Even though they say, oh, we owe it to ourselves. Well, if it can't be paid back, all the biggest achievers in this country will wind up having nothing if they can't pay it back. Because when they say we owe it to ourselves, that means the government really owes it to the biggest achievers in this country, and they'll lose all that capital to reinvest. Which means goodbye economy really bad. Understand? In other words, that cliche, we owe it to ourselves, we mainly do owe the debt to ourselves, quote unquote, is true. But the reality of the situation is that has major, major, major implications, because then if it can't be paid back, these great achievers that we owe the money to and these institutions that we owe the money to are going to cease to function. And they're the vital financial sinews and veins and arteries of the United States of America, which means everything will stop functioning. Now, when you look at the issue, if we owe money to foreign powers like China, for instance, in exchange, since we are going more and more in debt, and interest rates really can't climb or else our government's going to default, China has made a deal with the U.S. government that they will get in on the major ports in the United States and charge fees to the shipping industry. A lot of people don't realize that. That was also another deal with the Panama Canal. The Chinese own that. Yeah. You know why they did that? That was because the USA can't pay back the debt they owe to China. That's what's going on with the Boston Harbor. That's what's going on, I think, in Long Beach, California, another harbor. And Chinese are all in there, and they're collecting fees on all the international shipping coming to the United States. They own a lot of these ports. That was done in exchange for them holding more USA paper treasury notes, because they know they're freaking garbage. Now, what's the next step? What's Uncle Sam going to pull out of the hat next, or the powers that be in this country? I don't think they have any more moves. I don't. Actually, to tell you the truth, the people on the top, they don't know what the hell's going on exactly. I mean, they're very smart, but they kind of react to the situation. They got plans, but then the plans go awry, and they react to the situation. One big example was the Club of Rome. It was one of the ones, and a lot of people gig on the Jews. I'm going to tell you right now, it's more coming out of Italy than anything, the global power stuff. Now, I'm basically half Italian. My mother's, and I'm talking by DNA. Even though I got very light skin, that's because I got Irish and Eastern European and Norwegian, right? But I'm basically half Italian by DNA, which is quite a bit for considering, what the mix probably should have been. Now, the deal is, though, me saying this against Italy is actually saying this against my own heritage, right? So why would I say that? I don't dislike Italians, okay? So I'm just telling you flat out that a lot of this, it's not all Italians doing this. I mean, the elite have always been coming out of Rome, and actually particularly Venice. Venice has, the island with the canals and all that garbage. That's always been a major banking hub of the international bankers behind the scenes, more than you think. Now, The situation, though, is coming to a head whereby they don't have any more moves left. And what I was getting to on with the elite is that they don't always make the right decisions when they plan ahead. The Club of Rome, for instance, was one of the ones that was really pushing for this global warming agenda. Now, I know some people are going to argue with me about the global warming, but you'll see what's coming. You've actually been seeing this over the last few years, but you'll see it. It'll be very, very obvious over the next few years. We're actually going into global cooling. But at the time when they thought dreamed this up, it looked like we were going into global warming. It's a nature cycle. So they were using this to push for a global carbon tax. But you see, my point is on this, they screwed up. They zigged when they should have zagged. At the time, it looked like the right decision to convince people to get on board for a global carbon tax, and they went the wrong direction because the globe is going to be it's already been starting to get colder, but over the next few years, it's going to be very, very obvious. And them saying global warming, they should have said global cooling. They would have been better off. They might have looked stupid before, maybe 15 years ago when they dreamed this crap up, but now they would be looking smart. The problem is, like I said, they zigged when they should have zagged, and that's really kind of goes. And it's a good analogy as to what happens with all the stuff they do. They make plans, but a lot of times those plans go astray after a while because of unaccounted factors. Now, they're very intelligent people, and they try to adjust for those factors, but a lot of times they're in a situation where they're always trying to react to what's coming up or reacting to something that already happened. Like, when people put $100 million plus on Jeb Bush to be elected, they just lost that money. You think they weren't pissed off at that? You think they like throwing money away on something? No. Now look how much money they threw on Hillary Clinton. It looks like, I don't even know if she's going to make it to the election. So they lost that. So what they might do? They might just pull the plug on every damn thing. Now, what I look at with silver is kind of like your last resort financial haven. That's really what the hell it is. It's not something that's going to be liquid in a immediate financial crisis, but it's always going to have this value. In other words, you might have something that could be worth more to somebody like cans of beans or bullets or bacon or whatever, or toilet paper and booze and Jack Daniels and wine, whatever, and rice. That might be worth more in the immediate time when there's a crisis. But silver is going to be a thing that is going to retain its value for the long haul. And it's going to probably go up erratically at one point in time before things stabilize. It's probably going to hit some crazy heights that you never heard of before. In other words, even if silver was I don't know. Well, you know what? Even if you said gold was $2,000 an ounce and silver was, the silver to gold ratio was 40 to 1, that would still put silver at $50. Is that unreasonable? Hell no. Hell no. I mean, actually, that's really pulling back a lot. And if you look at the U.S. debt clock, usdebt.org, look on the bottom right-hand corner, with the expansionary dollars that we've had, silver is supposed to be valued at $800 an ounce as compared to what they showed in 1930. And gold would be at 8,000 something an ounce. So that's kind of showing maybe a 10 to 1 ratio. I don't know if it's going to go that high, but it could. And if it does, it's not going to be long. It's going to be very brief. Very brief. And goods are going to be very, very high in this country, astronomically high, all commodities. As a matter of fact, the one thing that's coming up in this country is interest rates rise on long-term debt, the 30-year bonds. If they start rising, where the money's going to go is into commodities, because the equities in general are overpriced. The commodities is where the money will go, and the commodities will start rising in price. It's just starting right now. We're at the very, very, very beginning of the commodity bull run. In other words, when silver goes up, copper is going to cost a lot more money. Palladium is going to cost a lot more money. Aluminum, zinc, and agricultural staples and oil. As a matter of fact, within a year, probably we're going to be well over $100 a barrel on oil again. And even though Texas did find that big find in Apache Reserve, it's not producing yet. I think Actually, there's probably a lot of impetus to start a major conflict in the Middle East, um, because well, the only reason oil prices are low right now is because they're trying to contain Russia. Um, it does different things. Everything they do is basically a plus and a minus, it has an advantage and a disadvantage. Um, but in the absence of not containing Russia, I think the elite in this country would allow oil prices to go up very high because they have a lot of oil reserves in this country and they would like to freaking reap the rewards of that. So that's actually going to be the time when silver is going to go very high. You're not going to see silver go high without high oil prices. I know people are arguing with me and say, "Oh, they can't be high because the demand's low and we're flush in oil." But you're listening to major media when you're hearing that kind of garbage. Yeah, we're always flush with oil. There's plenty of oil on this earth. You got to get it out of the ground. Problem is, if you start a major war in the Middle East and all of a sudden all these refineries are offline, oil goes way the hell up. When that happened with Gaddafi in Libya in 2011, actually that was only 2% of the world's oil that was offline. Oil went up to I think 120 something dollars a barrel, and that's immediately or thereafter silver spiked to about 47 something an ounce. They're going to have to run together. So you're seeing a little life in oil. It's been down below 30. It's up in the 40s now in the WTI. But you're seeing basically a little life in silver. Sometimes it gets near 20. But you're not going to see life in silver until life in oil goes way the hell up, which means you're going to have it pretty damn tough as an average consumer in the United States because you're going to have a lot of expenses. In other words, oil is related to the retail trucking of all goods and everything else, everything we do, manufacturing and everything. It'll drive the cost of everything up, especially food, because actually food is a very highly intensive market that requires a lot of energy. It's the farm tractors applying the fertilizer. It's trucking the fertilizer to the plant. It's taking the food from the farm to the storage areas, to the processing plants, and then manufacturing the food with more energy and then trucking it to retail markets. Actually, to go from the ground to the store requires a lot of energy. One reason, probably one of your major strategies, should be a garden, if you could do that. If they don't have SWAT teams against gardens in your area. Haha. But anyway, you can always play the incognito garden like these cats. Yeah, we're gardening under here. You can't tell we're in here gardening. So anyway, I've been lengthy on this video, and I usually am lengthy on videos because there's a lot of subjects I like to cover at once. And sometimes I do talk fast, I know that. But I think I did drop a few gems to you. But, first off, what happened in 2008. I don't want to say the guy's name I talked to personally, but I know it was confirmed by Hank Paulson's words later on and Timmy Geithner. And you say, well, I can't trust them. Well, yeah, you can't trust some things they say. They narrowly averted a freaking systemic freezing up of the banking system back in September 28, 2008. That may come up again in this September, maybe. I don't know. It's possible. I think things are actually a little out of control. And if you think the elite got everything figured out, well, look at the idiots that freaking put their $100 million something dollars on Jeb Bush and they lost their money. Look at all the idiots that are putting their money on Hillary Clinton, and she looks like a losing horse, big time. I mean, she looks worse than a horse. She looks worse than a horse's rear end. That's one of the reasons she's probably not going to win. If she was if that was a 20-year younger Hillary Clinton that did aerobics and she had a great body, and she was out there in a bikini doing a speech, and she had no fat on her, and she had a boob job, she'd probably win by a landslide, even though she did the same things wrong. But being that she's pretty nasty looking, and I tell you what, that actually influences votes big time, believe it or not, even though it has nothing to do with what should be the reality of the situation. But that's another reason I think she's going to lose, too. Just the way she looks. Believe it or not, that has a lot to do with the way people decide on candidates, too. I mean, some people are voting her because she's a woman, but I mean, she's looking bad. That's even beyond. That's icing on a cake compared to all the other things that are wrong with her issues, from the emails, the bribes for, favors from the Clinton bribes to the Clinton Foundation, from favors from the State Department, all the dead bodies and all that, her in the bushes. Um, so, the situation is grave, but like I said, they don't have everything under control. And your real reason you got this silver though is this: it's sort of like your long-term, last resort financial asset. And I would not put bet the farm on silver. Don't do that shit. I never said that. Any commodity has always been known as high risk, high reward, and silver's been known at like that too. It could be high reward, but don't put all your money on silver is foolish. You should actually, if you don't have any silver and you don't have any food, you should be buying canned food first. I should tell you that right now. I'll leave you with that note. But don't bet the farm on silver. It's not the correct thing to do. So anyway, over and out, and peace, happiness, and all this other good shit. I'll probably putting some other videos out here. Been putting out some other videos on what the hell did I put out a video on? Mini pistol crossbow just recently. Kind of messing around with that thing. That thing's pretty powerful, man. If you ain't got no food, hey, you know what? They got possums and squirrels out there in abundance. What are you gonna do, right? That might be a good $35 investment. Actually, I'd invest in that before I'd probably invest in silver. So I'm a common sense guy, okay? And but don't lose any faith in what silver can possibly do, because gold should easily go to $2,500 an ounce. Silver should go, you know, it should go to 20 to 1 ratio with gold, which would put it at $125 if gold's $2,500 an ounce. If gold only goes to, I don't know, $2,200 an ounce and silver goes to 25 to 1 ratio, I don't know, that still would put it up in the high 40s. Easy, right? So I mean, it's got a lot of room to grow easily. It shouldn't be a problem. And I think anybody that invested in silver, even when it was near 50, they're going to get all their money back plus. They are, at a minimum. And at that time, don't be afraid to sell, because everyone's going to be telling you, what do you do? Take fiat and put it? No, yeah, of course you take fiat, because you know what? That's the medium of exchange in this country. The problem is, you know, you don't want to hold fiat forever. You want to you take fiat when you at the point of sale, and then you do another investment. It might be land. It might be, I don't know, it might be a 4x4 that runs on diesel. A 4x4 CJ7 that has that BT4 mini Cummins diesel, the four-cylinder jobber, right? You might have something like that can run on vegetable oil. Maybe you want to get something like that. That's a good practical investment. It's a real chicken magnet too, like an M37. What do you call those things? The trucks they had in the army. A real chick magnet, right? Or could buy a Harley. Whatever. So anyway, just don't worry too much about this shit, because I don't like putting people under that doom and gloom spell. But I'm telling you that the situation is serious, and I do know most people that have a lot of money, they're very, 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 very smart. That's why they have the money. All people with a lot of money are very, very smart. The problem is they're not Karnak the magician, and the other problem is they get overconfident. Sometimes they think they can make no wrong move, and they start thinking they're very, 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 very intelligent, which they are. But then they overrate their intelligence because some of it was luck, and then they do irrational things and they trip themselves up. I mean, the best and the brightest have fallen before. That has happened, and it's not an unusual circumstance. So don't think the elite got everything, quote unquote, all the bases covered, because they don't. And this kid is on your side all the way, because, if I was want to really make money, I'd just be working at the CPA firm full time. Right now it's tax season again. I don't like doing taxes though. I hate the IRS. But I could be making gobs of money right now doing that stuff. Right? September 15th, right? I'm not doing it. Then October 15th, September 15th for the corporations, yes, corporations and everything, and October 15th for the personals. On extensions, that is. On extensions. So, I mean, I could be doing that right now. I'm here talking to you guys, right? You understand? So I'm the real McCoy. I'll tell you that right now, whether you believe it or not.